Okay, good morning, everyone. Committee, good morning. Good morning. Okay, committee, it is currently 9:02 and we are live. So I am going to call this meeting to order. My notes. There we are. I'd like to confirm that this is 9:02 a.m. and confirm that all members are here and present today. Welcome to committee members. Welcome to senior staff. I'd like to confirm that we have our new CAO Pink. I feel really privileged to be able to welcome you to your new role today. Sitting beside us, our clerk and members of other senior management team and staff are present. I'd like to advise that and continue to advise the members of the public to please provide comment at tmlpubliccomment@muskokalakes.ca. While we didn't receive any officially for our meeting, I do want to take a moment just to remind members of the public who are hopefully watching that it is really helpful to follow this process to ensure that all members of council do receive the communications that you are hoping that we do receive, but also to ensure that those come in at a good time. And I think I am not alone when I say, I think this morning, some of us have received up to 3 or 4 new emails with content in it that we are discussing today. And so it's very difficult for us sometimes to be able to read all these emails when we're already sitting around the table. So just a quick reminder to those who may be watching. Just a reminder that today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. I would like to note that there was a supplementary agenda issued. Item 4A, our invited guests or in presentation from GHD Advisory Group regarding our level of service study. Their presentation was attached under 4A, and under 6B, a delegation Heidi Kreiner-Lay for the Acton Island Road Condition resurfacing request. So there was another presentation as well there. At this point, I'd like to ask committee, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. I already skipped to number 4, which was welcoming our new CAO. This is very exciting for those of you who are watching and for those who are attending today. Today is day 3, I think, of your job, CAO Pink. A week probably feels like a lifetime already, doesn't it? So welcome. And so today we are going to be enjoying our former Director Pink in his new role, and welcome to the team. Last administrative piece, motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite this meeting. And from a voting perspective, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk. This is not considered a recorded vote. Okay, so at this point, we're going to be moving on to items 4A, and I would like to invite Director Colucci up to welcome and introduce our consultants. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the report before you and the presentation upcoming is about the level of service study. So in March 13th, 2024, at the council meeting, we awarded the contract to GHD Limited. And so that work proceeded shortly thereafter. And obviously, since then we've had a change in director and now a change in CAO. So, some of the work has not proceeded as quickly as originally anticipated. So you'll see in the schedule that is being reviewed that, some of the phase 1 work is not quite complete and some is finished already. There was some workshops with previous director, and now we're having a workshop later this week with the current leadership team. So I'm happy to introduce Jeff Mathews and Glen Edwards, who will be presenting on the level of service study.
To raise it up, I stand 6'8", so I am up there. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice, so I sound a bit croaky here. I'd like to acknowledge Director Colucci there for the introduction. Thank you very much, and I acknowledge the chair and the committee for providing us with the opportunity to give you a progress update on this level of service study. We have a slide deck prepared. By way of introduction, I'm Jeff Mathews. I'm the project director for GHD, working on this project, and I have accompanying me Glen Edwards, who's the project manager for this. And just really want to say, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity, and just the opportunity to drive around and get to know the area a bit. It's a fantastic community and a fantastic location you have here. You're truly blessed. So without further ado, next slide, please. Okay, so really, we're going to run through the presentation. We're going to run through the activities done today. Highlight some of the key attributes, the key features of what a level of service should include and what we're doing, and then highlight the sort of next steps moving forward. So we'll talk a little bit about the overview, the history, the activities, the approach. We'll look at the progress. We'll highlight the progress with the community survey and the peer benchmarking studies that we're doing. And we'll also provide you the sort of outline of those next steps. Okay, so what are we doing? So when we responded to the original RFP that was set out way ago, we identified that this is a level of service study. But this is a study that's important because it's going to help provide information for future decisions. And so our understanding is that this is more than just a framework. It's more than just a series of metrics. So the town's objective is to develop a service framework, a level of service framework for 8 service areas or 8 asset classes, if you like, that comply with provincial legislation. So there's an Ontario regulation 588/17 that sets out expectations for asset management for municipalities. So our project, our approach is geared towards compliance with those expectations. And as in the work we do, we're looking to, with each of those service areas, understand and identify those key service performance metrics, if you like. So like I said, the framework that we want to develop, our intent is to produce a framework that provides you with information and the ability to make future decisions. Okay, so before we sort of get into the sort of next steps, I find it useful to have a quick sort of what is actually a level of service, and so everybody's sort of on the same page, if you like, of understanding around what a level of service is. We have a layered approach to the different types of services. As a municipality, you have corporate level services, you have customer facing services, you have internal technical level or asset level services, and you also have financial services and support. So there's a whole range of services that the 8 service areas deliver and work towards. So recognizing those, the level of service metric is an indicator that represents the service outcomes. It's not about the asset necessarily. It's not about the condition of an asset. It's about the performance of an asset in delivering services and the service outcomes that are achieved. Okay. The information then that each of those metrics for each of the services that we identify are then coalesced into a service framework, which is then used as like a visual dashboard. But for to help for communication purposes. So we have a 3-phased approach, a methodology here, where the first phase is very much about getting to know, getting to understand. We know how to develop a service framework. We know what a service metric looks like, but we don't know Muskoka. So very much the first part is understanding the township, understanding the data that's there, analysing that data, and learning what are the stories, what are the performance successes, what are the areas where things perhaps there's opportunity for improvement. So that first phase, very much around the awareness of how things work. Second phase is producing the framework, is understanding the services, the standards that they need to perform to, the expectations around service provision, and just how that can all coalesce, as I said, into a framework. And then the final phase is the wrap up. It's that reporting, it's that telling the story. This is what we saw, this is what we thought, this is what we've learned, this is what we think, this is the direction for you. Again. So very much within the scope then, the infrastructure and the assets in those service areas, the administrative facilities, culture, sports and rec, emergency facilities, information tech, parking, stormwater management, transportation and fleet. So those are the areas within the scope of our framework. Okay, and what we've been doing is looking at the asset inventory, so the repositories of information around the life cycle, the condition, the state, and the composition of each service area, the assets and infrastructure that they own, because that asset, that infrastructure delivers the service. Okay. Next slide. So in terms of analysing, we've got some metrics here, $609 million worth of assets. You can see some breakdowns here. We've analysed your plans, we've looked at a whole raft of information to tease out asset information in support of developing those services. Right. We've also said and suggested and worked with the Director Colucci to develop a peer benchmarking study, reaching out to local sort of peers and some a little bit further afield, where they are reliant seasonal economies, where they have a relationship with a natural environment, is how I would describe it. So looking at your peers to see what lessons can be learned, what approaches they have in terms of developing their service metrics. So this study is ongoing at the moment. We may have to refine one of them in light of some recent wildfires out there. But yeah, this is a very much look around what's going on with peers out there. Is there anything that is working that we can learn from? Or if there are any pitfalls and traps that we know we should stay away from. So you can see from the visual there that what are our service areas. So our service area in terms of a hierarchy is that administrative grouping. So here we've got examples: culture, sports and rec. So then we look at the service outcomes that are achieved. So you can see social and natural environmental connection, connectivity, community spaces are managed, that historical connection. So we've looked at all those outcomes, and then we're starting to pull together service statements. Sorry. Service statements in support of those, where we are looking at what are the benefits, what are the outcomes from those services. This process, the standards and S4, is a workshop we've got taking place later this week. And this is an approach that enables us to identify the high-level drivers, the high-level influencers, the high-level potential shapers of service need, both current and future. So this helps us understand what the current state and the future state of the services out there. And it's a workshopping process where we look at demands, we look at the impacts of potential climate change, the sort of implications. We look at the asset types now and any sort of future plans and changes. And we look at the sort of potential funding opportunities as well. So it's a workshop that enables us to understand that big picture story, as I said. Thank you. Okay, and then we come into that sort of, once we understand the cost of service, we look at the assets, we look at the cost to keep those assets, we look at the cost of services. We join the two, we come up with a true cost of service for each service area. We then model those. We then extrapolate that starting point over a 10-year time frame. And that's what our service affordability model does. It lets us understand, as I said, the future affordability. It lets us understand the performance of assets and the cost of performance. And it lets us start to refine and model and tweak. We can look at the blending of assets and service outcomes to cost. So with the service affordability model, we have 3 potential scenarios that we can look at. We have that current state that we're calculating, but in terms of a forward look, that sort of future service outcomes optimization process, we can look at 3 approaches to help you make decisions, to understand if I have increased investment here, reduced investment there. We can model that, we can extrapolate that. And then these are suggested scenarios. We will be discussing with the township and with Director Colucci the exact nature of those modelling constraints and criteria. But you can see there's an unchanged investment. Carry on doing what you're doing. Carry on achieving the same service performance. Carry on achieving the same outcomes from service, extrapolated over 10 years. And then there's a desired target, an unconstrained. That's the what if. That's the, well, what can we do here? What can we do there? So it's an unconstrained modelling approach. And then the third piece is more of a constraint. It's more of a realistic, at some point, can we afford everything? Do we need everything? Is everything being used? So it helps us through the S4 process in particular, understand those constraints. So through those 3 modelling processes, you'll be able to look at the here and now, and also look at the future and say, this is a priority, perhaps this is less of a priority for our services that we want to deliver. Right. Now, it's important that we have engagement. So we have an element of the project where we're designing a community survey. At the moment, we've got a significant number of questions pulled together. There's ongoing work about tailoring that, refining that, and maybe condensing it in places to extract the right detail without necessarily the volume. We want a successful engagement process, so it has to be approachable. So there's thought going in around what the format of the questionnaire should be. But basically, what that information we're hoping will tell us is the community appetite, the community aspiration, the community willingness to pay, or with community willingness to do with less or more, whatever. But that community engagement piece is going to be important. Okay. Right. So what are we seeing so far? Well, we've looked at your asset information. We've looked at your financial information. And our calculations agree with your calculations. That may sound like a simplistic statement, but it's very important for us when we're coming in to understand the costs, to understand the true cost, to understand the implications of that. And you guys have done a fantastic job of owning and being self-aware around your financials. We looked at the conditions, so we understand what assets you have, we understand the state they're in. We've reviewed the data, so we have rafts and rafts of spreadsheets now that we're ready to mobilize into the next steps. Okay. We're also looking at the current levels of service, so we know the statutory obliged service expectations prescribed by the OREG. but we're identifying your current service levels and your current service metrics. Okay. We understand by each of those service areas, each of those 8 service areas, what the investment profiles have been and are at the moment. Okay. And then we're looking to, we've got some initial work around connecting levels of service to priority. Okay. Next slide. Okay. Thank you. So this is the schedule that we have. From here on in, we've done the prep work, we've done the data analysis, the number crunching, we've had some initial conversations, we've had some workshops, but this is when we, you know, as a consulting group, we become more visible to you. There'll be more workshops, there's some taking place this week. The surveys will be mobilized. We're just in the process this week, hopefully with a meeting tomorrow, just agreeing the format and the content. That'll start to go out. So from now really is the heavy lift, if you like, of what's left to be done on there. So you can see there's some key features. We're making good progress in some areas. Other areas we're a little bit behind, you know, on the schedule. From my perspective, though, with these types of projects, this is perfectly normal. I'm comfortable with what we're doing and how we are, where the state is. And for us, really, it's full steam ahead. So if there's any sort of questions afterwards, happy to, you know, address those. But in terms of the deadline, still working towards and still anticipating our expected date. You can see there the progress against those. Phase 1, pretty good progress. Phase 2, the design work's gone in. The survey just needs to be implemented. So the phase 3 areas, we started the initial write-up on some observations. Okay. So, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much. That was great. So I will open up the floor, committee, if there's any questions. I see Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. Through you to the presenter. Thank you for your presentation and update today. So I'm wondering what advice you would have for us around this table relating to the December completion of this document, when we will be well into our 2025 budget discussions. And that may fall back to our treasurer, but you know, you're going to be coming forward with a pretty insightful document, and we will have been, you know, perhaps 71% of the way to getting a budget. How do you see the interplay of your document and what we have currently in front of us?
That's a great question. We're using your numbers. The way we've used them agree with what what you've calculated as well. So at the starting point, there's common ground. We're using those numbers to predict 10-year forecasts. We're using those numbers to predict alternative futures. Okay. We're hoping through the ongoing dialogue that we have as part of the project process and meetings we have with Director Colucci, that we're aware of these. We don't want surprises for you. So as and when we get the information calculated, it'll be coming over for approval visibility.
Director Colucci, do you have anything that you would like to add to that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, you know, I think, you know, what the consultant is saying is that, you know, as we get this information, we can feed it into our budget for this year. And then, you know, obviously on the bigger picture, you know, it will have a bigger effect on the 2026 budget, which, you know, we'll implement in next year's budget. So, you know, I think that there won't be any huge changes because, you know, it's going to be a slow recommended change and over a 10-year program. So that's how we'll do. You know, similarly, we're updating the road needs study next year. So the road needs study might affect our roads budgets in future years. But if it's not complete by the time the budget cycle is in place, then it has to affect the following year's budget.
Thank you. Committee, are there any other questions? Councillor Boseworth, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, and through you. I've been very patiently waiting for this study because I can't imagine how we are going to balance roads versus community centers versus arenas versus parks and we've got all these levers. Is there an, can you explain for me how we're going to get around that? It just seems like we're going to have 10 or 15 levers that you can pull and tweak to make that line go up or down. And, are we going to have little rougher roads, but nicer community centers? I mean, it just sounds like a very, very difficult exercise to get your head around.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As consultants, we're not trying to replace the role of the committee and the council, who are the ultimate decision makers. What we can do is help provide information and say, this is the service standard, this is the cost of service, and we can make recommendations around, is there elasticity, is there a willingness to change around the provision of service standard, is there a willingness to cut costs or invest more? Yeah. So through our modelling processes, we can highlight that. We can make suggestions, but ultimately, as a community, the onus will be on taking the information, taking the suggestions, understanding the pace of change, the pace of when those levers need to be pulled will be down to the committee and future work. But hopefully, from what you get from us, you'll have a clearer insight.
Councillor Roberts.
And thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, directed to staff or the consultant, would you remind committee the results of, or the quantity of replies we had to the public engagement survey? How many people responded to that? And if you don't have it, don't worry about it. I don't think
we've done it yet. For this
well, we
one.
haven't.
No, this is
we
what
haven't done
they're
nothing.
about to
Okay,
embark.
my mistake.
I think the next portion, and help me if I'm
correct.
correct, is they've done the data collection. Really, I think the heavy lifting over the next few months is going to be ensuring robust engagement from us, from staff, from the public through a survey and other means. And so this becomes the less technical and much more listening to everybody stage.
So just a second question on that. During that process, will we, I assume and I can confirm that we'll be gathering what the township views as our shortfalls in service level delivery, like what we'd like to do, and that from the community.
The information that comes back from that engagement survey, the township will have 100% visibility of it, because we're working with the township to release the survey. The results will come back via the channels established by the township. We will then interpret and work with the township around the presentation of that information, and that will be presented back in a timely manner when it's sort of collated and presentable.
Just a concluding thought. I heard you're going to be working with the township, but I was looking at, will you be also considering known issues of shortfall in service delivery and where we can improve it? Thank you.
Yeah. It's not the only element, it's not the only string to the level of service bar, but any information we need. Yeah. Thank you. Great question.
Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Chair Mazan, and through you, I guess referring to Councillor Zavitz's question, the only impact I see that's on the immediate budget would be the evaluation of how much we need to be putting into reserves. Okay, how big a problem do we have? And since we haven't measured yet whether the problem is big, small, non-existent, because it's a question of how much money we put in versus what service level we decide. That to me is the only 2025 urgent question. Yes, we could put a little more into some other investments and into some projects, but it's really a question of how much we're tucking away versus the $1 million we put away last year to cover future problems. So that's where I see a problem. We won't have the answers before we make that decision, which would probably guide you to put more away rather than less, is my personal view.
Thank you. And I don't want to step, but I'm going back to that one slide of the service affordability models. It sounds like they're going to be providing an regardless of which model, unless we decide to really reduce all services. Chances are, I think your comment about needing to put more money into reserves is valid, right? Like regardless of the decisions we make, we're going to have to put more money into reserves. Right. Correct. Yeah.
So I suggest that it's not going to be, again, we're going to be stuck sitting there deciding to put in more. That's, I don't think there's a gap in the way to fix that.
Yeah, thank you. Did you have your hand, CAO Pink? Mine wasn't? Oh, Sally's wasn't, sorry, or Councillor Kent, sorry, your microphone wasn't on. That's okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you very much through the chair. I see it took 7 communities and I'm wondering why Jasper, Alberta and Canmore were picked. Are you just doing studies on them or what is the sort of evidence?
Yeah, great question. Jasper, given the recent circumstances, I think we're going to be taking off the list of the wildfire. So the rationale was we have immediate peers and we have Ontario, predominantly. So they'll have similar legislative, similar financial, similar sort of constraints and comparable. It helps to look further afield where you have similar community sort of challenges. They're reliant on seasonal economies. That they have a branding or a theming with the natural environment, that they're historical. So that there are lessons learned that we can hopefully gain from their experience or pitfalls to avoid or opportunities to say, hey, that could work here. So there's benefit in looking at immediate around us within Ontario and a little bit further afield. Okay, so what we want to do is maximize the chances of success from that peer benchmarking.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Committee, are there any other questions? Okay, I'm seeing none. Director Colucci, sorry. Would you like to go through your report as well at this point, or I guess that's the next part of the agenda. So do we want to do that while the consultants are still with us? And that way, if there's any further questions?
Through you, Madam Chair. I mean, I don't think I need to go through it anymore. I mean, we've done the presentation and the report was really just a cover report for this presentation. So if there's no further questions on the presentation, I think we can move forward.
Okay. Committee, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. We look forward to the next few months. And as you said, this project will become a lot more visible to all of us, I think, over the next few months. So we look forward to that. Thank you for all the work so far. Have a great day. Okay, committee, we are now moving on to our delegations. And our first delegation is Ms. Bentley. Thank you. Welcome. Just a reminder, yeah, you might have to put the mic down. Good work. It's on. Excellent. Yep, I think it's on. Is it on?
Hello? Hello? We're good?
Yes, we can hear you. So once again, you have the 5 minutes and our clerk will.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, committee members. My name is Kelly Bentley. I, along with my husband, Doug Bentley, are the owners of the largest single owner pieces of property in Ballard. We own 100 acres on Highway 169, just inside the town limits of Ballard. We are located on the east side of Highway 169, adjacent to the Ballard Sports Park. Since 1987, 6 acres of the property has operated as Ballard Court Storage, a self-storage facility. Another 4 acres has recently been developed and opened a year ago as a golf practice facility called Aussie's Driving Range. We are currently building a multi-use golf facility on the property and forecast another revenue increase next year. We are a significant economic development driver for the town as we have become a destination drive for many from Port Carling, Torrance, Walker's Point, Gravenhurst, and even Severn. We have several regular customers who actually boat into Ballard and walk from the highway with their golf bags in tow. As longtime cottagers and now residents, I'd like to impress upon you that both my husband and I care about Ballard, its community and residents. The driving range project has been a labor of love and an opportunity for us to give back to the community. Its build has encouraged an alternative and, most importantly, accessible and affordable activity to water sports, offered a play and learn program for the Glen Orchard Primary Elementary School, and sparked many locals to dust off their clubs to start moving and hit again. The range has generated an increase in foot traffic. People walk, sometimes two abreast, or bike with golf bags along the road from Ted Smith's construction, past the post office, past the OPP station, past the sports park, along the narrow gravel shoulder to the driving range. So coincidentally, for us on the agenda today, you have put as number 10, a report from the Economic Development Officer. And in that, you have the report from the Economic Development Officer, the report and its appendix. And in there, under number 4, under the report, you have the community improvement plan. And you list the improvement for ballast streetscapes. And you have the costs and anticipated external share. And the community improvement plan identifies desired streetscape improvements along Muskoka Road 169 throughout downtown Bala, including the completion of missing links, et cetera, et cetera. Specifically, the CIP recommends investments in the following, which is the Muskoka Road 169 at Muskoka Lake Sports Park, the new sidewalk on the east side of 169 connecting the sports park to Bala. So if I am assuming what you have just said, if the proposals to complete the missing sidewalk links from Ted Smith's business to the sports park, we as business owners are asking the missing sidewalk link addition to continue to the entrance of the driving range. This would protect the young patrons and families who commonly visit the park and then have to walk on the highway over to our facility. It also provides safety for the many young children who bike along that gravel road highway with golf bags slung horizontally on their back to the golf range. If the argument is that the community safety zone of 50 kilometers per hour that's in place protects its population, I will strongly disagree. And if you'd like to document that for a later date, I'd be happy to. However, to isolate our business and to not continue the missing sidewalk link to the entrance of the driving range is turning your back on one of the biggest recreational businesses in town. I'd like to emphasize, we are not a town consisting of a middle and two ends. We are a town of economic opportunity throughout, and this should be reflected in its sidewalk grid and connectivity to all viable business in town, both north and south, and to all those within the town limits. And we are within the town limits.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, so just as a reminder, this is a chance for committee to ask questions. And as we noted further in the agenda, we will have our discussion as we talked about earlier. So questions, committee. Councillor Zavitz, sorry.
Thank you. Through you to Ms. Ramsey. Listen, thank you for the presentation. I'm really glad you came forward, and I'm wholly supportive of what you're asking and have been for a number of years in terms of the CIP. I'm sure we'll get to that later in this agenda. My question to you, are you on town water and sewer?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Committee, are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
And
having
as we
me.
discussed,
Appreciate it.
feel free to go on with your day, and
Thank
our
you.
clerk and or somebody else from staff will follow up with you afterwards.
Okay, thanks
Okay.
very much.
Thank you. Okay, our next delegation is Ms. Kreiner-Lay. Welcome. Welcome. And as I noted, just the previous delegation, we will time. And as it's getting closer, you might see me just put my hand up. I will try really hard not to interrupt you, but if I'm putting my hand up, it just means we're getting close to the 5 minutes.
Yeah, I might go a little bit over. Because
Okay.
it's hard to stay with you.
Okay, but just so you know, we're kind of limited to the 5 minutes.
Yep,
So,
thank you. My name is Heidi Kreiner-Lay. My children and I own a modest cottage property on Apiary Road at the end of Acton Island since 1994. I am here before you today as a very concerned citizen and neighbor to my community on Acton Island. For decades, I was in direct contact with the former Director of Transportation and Roads whenever Acton Island became treacherous. In previous years, the township would resurface Acton Island every 7 to 10 years, recognizing how important safety on this populated residential road is. There are over 100 driveways which directly access and front onto Acton Island Road. These affected owners and others on small side streets and their families and guests have only one place to walk their dogs, jog, cycle, and stroll with their families near their homes, and that is on the busy Acton Island Road, with its over 50 curves and numerous steep hills. Safety and liability are a huge factor when the road has degraded as much as Acton Island Road has, with drivers trying to avoid potholes, bumps, rocks, and trenches created by heavy machinery and trucks. While the drivers are focusing on all this, many pedestrians and cyclists are moving into lanes more, trying to avoid tripping on or falling over on the non-shoulders. They have nowhere else to walk or cycle as Acton Island has no formal shoulders and only road and ditches. I've emailed most of you, together with the clerk, photographs of only a smattering of some of the areas on Acton Island Road, which show granite rocks and tree roots breaking through the road surface, and shoulders and road edges degrading to cracks, broken off pavement, and dangerous loose pieces being integrated with forest vegetation. There has been over the years patching upon patching upon patching by the municipality, which is cracking, breaking, lifting, and disintegrating over and over again. Acton Island Road has also been, over the past 10 years, subject to enormous construction vehicles carrying tons of granite and landscape rocks, large construction equipment on flatbeds, and demolition and construction material being removed and brought in. The Muskoka paving resurfacing is not meant for such abuse. You will see in the photos I sent you, 2 areas actually show tracks from 2 Caterpillar bulldozers which have dug into the pavement. Acton Island has not been immune to the unprecedented growth and surge in the population of the Muskokas over these past 10 years, where the area has experienced being the 4th largest growing area in the province. Statistics Canada released data in 2022 that said the Muskoka's growth rate was almost double that of the province of Ontario. Cottages and homes on Acton Island over the past 10 years have been renovated, demolished, and rebuilt, with some larger properties carved into smaller lots and new cottages built like never before. Our shoreline has changed dramatically. Being in real estate as a broker for over 49 years, I know that the last 10 years have been a boom like no other, with cottages and summer homes on the lake or in the area being lavishly built and landscaped like never before in the history of Muskoka. Acton Island and its road have suffered the repercussions under the weight of this growth. I've been informed by your staff, in particular, Tim Sopkow, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Manager of Public Works, that Acton Island Road was resurfaced in 2014. I was also told that the threshold for roads being resurfaced in Muskoka was every 10 years. Our road is at a cutoff of this scheduled period, and this is recorded in municipal records. I was also informed that the resurfacing of Acton Island Road is being considered or has already been delayed to 2030. Almost done. For the Acton Island community, this is completely unacceptable and continues to put our families and visitors at risk. Having worked in property management as well for over 40 years with the same insurance broker during that time, insuring multiple properties, I am well versed in the litigative risk, what to do to avoid exorbitant claims, which is becoming more rampant. Should the committee and council Muskoka Lakes decide to postpone the resurfacing of Acton Island Road beyond the recommended schedule of 10 years with the condition of the road cataloged and brought to your attention, you are putting the municipality and taxpayers at enormous risk of being sued for possibly tens of millions of dollars should cyclists, pedestrians, or motorists be injured on Acton Island Road.
Okay,
You
thank,
may think,
I-
last paragraph, you may think that the municipality is insured, but there would probably be a very strong case by the insurer to deny any claim due to negligence on the part of the municipality, as you were made aware of the risks of the damaged road and the resurfacing delay that was imposed. I am beseeching on you today not to put our residential community at risk any further. Please approve the resurfacing of Acton Island Road in the upcoming year. It is a necessity. I thank you very much for your time and serious consideration. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you, Madam Chair.
okay, thank you. Similar to the last delegation, this will be a chance for questions, and then we will have a further discussion later in today's agenda. So, committee, are there any questions? Okay, I'm
Thank you
seeing
very
none. Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you.
The next delegation, it looks to me, is a similar topic. Is it Mr. Goddard? Is he online? Okay, excellent. So he is, Mr.
Hello.
Goddard, are you? Oh,
I am here. I am.
Okay, I can hear you. We just can't see you.
Oh, I don't know. Who knows what these things? Start video. Okay. There you go.
Wonderful. Now I can see you and hear you.
Great. Great.
So, Mr. Goddard, you have 5 minutes and
Yep.
welcome.
Thank you. It's my name's Paul Goddard. I'm the treasurer and board member of the Acton Island Association, and I just wanted to add to Heidi's comments. I wanted to thank you for your time, and I know you guys all have a very difficult job, especially listening to us. I wanted to speak particularly to the north end of Acton Island Road. It's really between the bridge and 169 towards Ballow. It's in very, very rough condition. We know the district resurfaced between the other side up to the bridge. And I guess I was somewhat disappointed to hear that the district had offered to the Muskoka Lakes, while they had the people and the equipment on site, to actually extend and do that stub period. I call it the stub part of the road. And it was declined, and I don't understand it. I understand people have a list of projects that they're going to do in a particular year, but when the information changes, a decision can change. So you can reallocate priorities as to what's being done in what year. But in any case, we are where we are. I guess I also wanted to do a comparison of the other roads that were being resurfaced this year. So I took it upon myself to go and look at the roads that were done. I looked at 4 of them, but 3 of them had already been done. But one past Minette, Sagano Road, had not been done. And I can assure you it's in no worse condition than the Acton Island Road at the end. And I don't understand, because that stub part is just got patches on patches, and it is very rough. I guess what my ask is that it be put on, change the priorities in terms of when it's to be redone, and do that. I mean, ideally, we'd like to have the entire road redone, but I think in terms of the immediate criteria, we could, if we could just have that part of the road done for next year. And that's my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goddard. Committee, are there any questions? Is it a question though?
It is a question
Thank you.
of Paul. Thank you, and through you, Paul. I'm trying to reconcile all of the various issues with Acton Island that I've been made aware of over the time. So the color of the abutment of the precast concrete on the new bridge apparently is a problem.
Yeah,
Speeding is a significant problem.
correct.
And now road repair. And, you know, my limited understanding of road construction is that the smoother you make the road, the faster people drive. It is a 100% positive correlation between how good a road is and how people travel it. So I'm wondering where the Acton Island community is on the balance between, you know, a road that's really perfect and speeding.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, and I've made that observation in the past as well, that there's a downside to having the road in perfect condition, because as it is, it's a racetrack. And if it's even in better condition, well, it'll be even more of a problem. We can't do anything about all the blind corners in the hills and the twists and turns, because Acton Island Road is very twisty. But I think in particular that stub section is just in terrible condition, and I don't know why it's been left for, say, another 6 years to be resurfaced. I mean, to me, it's just untenable. But you're right, that there's always a balance between what condition it is and what the speeding is going to be like. I don't know what happened to Mortars Point Road. That was all resurfaced. I don't know if the speeding's been attended to, or what you can do. I know they put up speed signs. They put up speed radar with the lettering. We've asked the district to take a look at that for Acton Island Road, to put at least one or two speed signs, so people can become aware. The associations themselves, ourselves, we did a study 2 years ago where we set up a speed, where we were measuring the speed, and in one section of the road, somebody was going 120 kilometers an hour, which is just unbelievable. But in any case, that's just one example. But you're right, there's a balance between the condition and the problem of the speeding. And I think the radar signs would be a help, but beyond that.
Thank you. Questions, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you to Paul. So Paul, you're on the board of the Acton Island Property Owners, the Cottagers Association?
Correct.
Okay, so, you know, the premise that we would have substandard roads to keep the speeds down just doesn't, I don't even understand that concept. I know the road you're speaking of. Would you suggest that the association would profile accesses from 169 to Acton Island Road as the particular target? Because, you know, it's not what I heard in the other presentation. I mean, is it all of the road to the end, or is it by priority? Is it this particular stretch, which has two accesses from 169 to Acton Island Road?
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
ideally, we'd like to have the entire road redone, because it is on it's on the historical schedule for being resurfaced. But I think if that's a difficult concept to deal with it in your budget, I think in particular, the immediate requirement is that stub period at the north end of the road. Because
Thank you.
It's a danger.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Goddard. Are there any other questions? Councillor Edwards?
Yes, this is to our actual director, and Mr. Colucci. Have we done traffic studies on that? Like, I know there's a lot of roads that we have that need repair. What's the traffic flow on those roads compared to the other? Like, how do we pick the roads and that we are going to? Because I know Dawson Road is about the same shape right now. It's on Google Maps to bring everybody in through Dawson to Windermere. So there's literally hundreds of cars a day going up there. So I just wonder what the criteria is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Colucci?
Through you, Madam Chair. So in 2019, we did a road needs study, which looked at all the roads in the township of Muskoka Lakes, and it did a condition assessment. So it, it established a pavement condition and also did traffic counts for all the roads. So as a result of that, it established a 10-year capital plan for the road. So that's where Acton Island Road fell in about the 2030, 29 range to be reconstructed or resurfaced. The good news is that we are redoing our road needs study next year, and so that will reassess all the roads and then establish a new capital plan for a 10-year capital plan. So again, if the road has degraded more in the last 4 or 5 years than some of the other roads, then it might move up in the capital plan. The second part of that is that our road staff do patrols of all of our roads in the winter on a daily basis, and in the summer on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and complete necessary repairs to ensure that the road is of the standard according to the minimum standard. So they look at potholes and drop-offs and things like that. So the photos that were submitted as part of this presentation have been sent to the road staff, so they will be addressing if there are any issues as far as operational issues that can be done now.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, committee? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much for your time today, Mr. Goddard.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, committee, we are moving on to item D60. Mr. Niblett, is he also in? Okay, we'll just wait. Mr. Niblett, are you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Fantastic. I can hear you speaking. I just can't see you.
Yeah, unfortunately, my laptop is in a docking station. So if it's okay with you, can I just speak?
Yep. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
You have 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll start. First of all, good morning, Chair, Councils. My name is Stephen Niblett. I am here regarding a fee I received from TML lawyers regarding a donation of land, a right-of-way across my property on Falls Road. Per the meeting that went before council on February 11th, 2021, I clearly stated the main reason I bought this property was to protect winter access between Lake Rosso and Lake Joseph. I was really concerned about a potential new owner building a cottage there, denying access to the property, as is very common these days due to liability, trespassing, etc. And this typically would have been the outcome and the only safe access between Lake Rosso and Lake Joseph. Just for the record, I've been trying to sort this out for about 3 years now. There's been a lot of turnover and people I've spoke to in the township, and it's been passed on, and that person left, another person came on. So I apologize for the delay in getting to this, but here we are now. So consequently, during that meeting, actually, back to when I bought the property, I hit the bid, bought that property on Halls Road, and it was my immediate desire to get this access for winter access to the township of Muskoka Lakes to protect the only suitable and safe means of accessing Lake Rosso and Lake Joe during the winter. And literally hundreds, if not thousands, of snowmobilers, ice fishermen, people walking, hiking, cross-country skiing, etc., use this access across my property to access Lake Rosso in a safe means. During this meeting, I was also before council to continue what had already been started by the previous owner in severing the lot into two separate properties. It was not my intention. It had already been started, so I just continued with it so I could have a landing or something there on Islander. However, during the meeting, the council offered to waive the parkland fee, as there was a previous precedent, I forget which counselor mentioned that or what the property was. Mayor Harding denied this and said it should be reduced to 1%. So instead of 5, I got it down to 1. However, coming into this meeting, I was not aware of any previous precedent of waiving a parkland fee for a severance or donating land. It was not my intention to leverage this land donation in order to sway council and make a decision to reduce the parkland fee. I had no idea this was even an option. I've never been to council or even done this before. I kind of consider this 2 different points because council could have denied the severance. In fact, I think there were 13 neighbors that were at the meeting that spoke out against severing this property. So as a result, you know, I think council wants to leverage the fact that they waived the parkland fee in order for me to pay townships legal bills for their asset and their free donation of land. But I think it's 2 separate issues because, again, regardless of the severance outcome, as I mentioned in my meeting, I was donating this land. So, you know, I went ahead and donated the land, you know, and I thank the council for the reduction in fees, but it was not anticipated or required in order for me to donate the land. I was donating it regardless to protect Muskoka. Further, I paid for my significant costs to my lawyer and my lawyer's fees to re-register this property. I also had to pay the planners, my planners, not township. Township didn't pay their planners. I paid for the planning, not once, but twice, because township didn't like the design or the layout of the right-of-way access. So I had to send them back again at another cost to me. In fact, you know, I incurred all these costs myself and the township incurred nothing. They got the land for free. It's a free asset for them that benefits them and the public. And I'm graciously donating it across my property. I'm going to have to live there and have all these snowmobilers and cross-country skiers and stuff going back and forth across my property. In fact, there was an argument made by my attorney that I should actually be compensated for my legal fees and my planning fees that were to the benefit of the Township of Muskoka Lakes. I'm not asking for that back now, but the reality is this was a gift to the public, to the Township of Muskoka Lakes. It shouldn't have to cost me anything.
Okay,
Why
Mr.
would
Niblett,
landowners-
Mr. Niblett, you have reached your 5 minutes. Did you want to have any kind of
I
closing
have one,
comment?
well, I have just one word sentence left, so okay. It just sets a bad precedent if people want to protect Muskoka for wildlife, for the public, etc., to donate their land and incur thousands of dollars in costs to the benefit of Township of Muskoka Lake. I mean, you know, Santa Claus doesn't ask you to pay for his gifts.
Thank you very much. I will now open up to questions from committee. I see Councillor Zavitz and then Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, and through you. Could we ask of staff what kind of monetary benefit or gain this is to the township, or, you know, what is the money we're talking about here?
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Maybe
you.
we can have a history from staff's perspective on this particular. Mr. Sharp?
Through you, Chair, and good morning, committee, and thank you, Mr. Niblett, for your delegation. As we've heard from Mr. Niblett, he did apply for consent to create one new vacant lot on Lake Rosso, and that was combined with a zoning bylaw amendment application as well to restrict the location of shoreline structures on the severed lot. As we've heard, part of the severed lot does contain a snowmobile trail that staff understand has been in use for some time and provides an important means of snowmobile access to Lake Rosso. Council approved the application subject to a number of conditions of consent. One such condition was that the applicant grant the township a right-of-way to provide access over the snowmobile. So I just wanted to clarify that that was actually a condition of consent imposed by Township Council. A standard condition was also imposed requiring the applicant to pay cash in lieu of parkland, which is a standard condition. However, instead of the regular amount of 5% of the assessed value of the subject lands or the severed lot, whichever is less. That's the standard calculation that we use. The amount was reduced to 1%. As I understand it, this was done out of acknowledgement that the right of way was required to be granted to the township. However, the township could have imposed a requirement for 5% parkland, as well as the condition requiring a right of way. We have the authority to do so under the Planning Act. In fact, there's a section of the Planning Act that identifies that one of the criteria required be considered by the township when considering the approval of a consent application is whether there are any lands within the area of the consent that are required to be dedicated to the township for public purposes. Had the standard cash in lieu of parkland amount been applied, I understand Mr. Niblett would have owed the township in excess of $20,000. Instead, he owed just over $5,000 in cash in lieu of parkland. So there was a savings with respect to that. Nowhere in council's decision did it state that any legal fees associated with the granting of the right-of-way would be absorbed by the township. The condition requiring the right-of-way was imposed on the applicant, as I've indicated, and Mr. Niblett signed a planning services agreement when he submitted the application, obligating him to pay any disbursements related to the conveyance of his land. The exact amount owing by Mr. Niblett is, I believe, $3,007.34 for the legal fees. Thank you.
Thank you. That was informative. Thank you very much, Mr. Sharp. Good history lesson. Councillor Roberts.
Yes, Chair, through you to Mr. Niblett, if you're still available there. What is your estimated costs for you out of pocket to ensure that this snowmobile trail maintains across your property for public use?
Well, I mean, there's maintenance for grading, tree cutting, make sure that, you know, it's not used for other purposes like contractors, etc. You know, just to speak to this, I mean, again, it's kind of two separate points. I was, again, donating this land regardless of the severance, whether it went through or not. So there are two moot points. The council's trying to hang their hat on the fact that, oh, well, we gave you a reduction in your fee. Again, did not go into the meeting with that intention. And if it got shut down and I didn't get the severance, I would have still donated the land. And the property, after meeting with township, was met all the criteria for severance without me giving that piece of land. I didn't have to give it to get the severance. They're two separate issues.
Great. Thank you very much. Any further questions, Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you. And through you to staff, I suppose. So given the agreements and the information that Mr. Sharp told us about in terms of the historical aspects to this, what is the township on the hook for that we, in Mr. Niblett's mind, we haven't accommodated? I mean, there's a gap here.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Sharp?
Thank you, through you, Chair. As a result of the conditions that were imposed by council, there is a requirement for the township to go to its solicitor to deal with the legal aspects of conveying the right-of-way to the benefit of the township. And the fees associated with that, as I had indicated, were slightly over $3,000. So that's what Mr. Niblett's delegation is about. He's seeking to not have to pay that amount.
Thank you. Supplemental?
Supplemental, thank you. But within the original agreement, it was stated and he signed on that he would be responsible for the legal fees, or was that a moot point now as opposed to then?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I reviewed the the planning services agreement that's standard when any applicant submits an application, in this case for a consent, and it does indicate that the applicant would agree to pay any disbursements related to the conveyance of the land.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Nishikawa and then Councillor Bosemarth.
And through you to, well, just to you, I'm concerned the direction that this is going. And what message we might be sending to other landowners that are actually trying to offer their assistance to these types of like snowmobiling specifically. So I'm almost wondering, although we've had a great staff report, thank you. It just feels that this should come back.
So when we talk about this, I'll let you speak first then, when we get to the discussion point later in the agenda as to how we would want to advance from here. Like, what is the appropriate path forward? So if that's okay, Councillor Nishikawa, I'll let you speak first at that point when
you kind of took me off. So I'm
not taking you off. I want to make sure though that if we're doing the questions now, but I want to make sure that your thought is okay. Okay. Councillor Bosemarth?
Yeah, a question to Mr. Sharp. What percentage of the right of way, the area of the right of way, what percentage is it of the severed lot?
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Mr. Sharp?
Through you, Chair. It'd be difficult, I think, for me to identify at this point an exact percentage. If I had a little bit of time, I could likely dig into that and see if I could come up with a number. But I believe, just generally speaking, it is a fairly small percentage of the severed lot. If you've ever been along Halls Road, the property abuts Halls Road as well as Lake Rosso, and there's basically sort of a sliver of land, a narrow portion of land between the road and Lake Rosso, and there's a portion of that sliver that has been used historically as a snowmobile trail. Perhaps Mr. Niblett could speak to the specifics of the width, but I don't have an exact percentage for you. Sorry. Thank you.
Mr. Niblett, do you know the exact percentage, or is that something?
Yeah, well, I don't know the exact percentage, but I believe the width is 8 feet wide and approximately 20 feet long. Again, they wanted it actually narrowed. The township wanted it narrowed so that it couldn't be used for potential contractors to put heavy equipment down there. That's why they wanted it narrowed. That's why I had to pay again for my planners to go out there and have it narrowed. As a percentage of the lot, I'm not sure exactly what that would be.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Bosemarth, supplemental, and then Mayor Kelly.
Oh, thank you very much. What is the total square footage of the severed lot?
Through you, Chair, I'm just going to need a moment just to capture that information.
Perhaps just in fairness to staff, because now we're getting into the specifics of a previously discussed planning application. Maybe we can give them time, and when we're talking about this a little bit later.
Perfect.
It adds to the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Sharp, we can use that information later when we're having a discussion. So not an immediate. Mayor Kelly?
Thank you, and through you, this is actually to Mr. Sharp. We seem to be using the term land grant or grant of land indiscriminately with the grant of a right of way over land. I don't think that's the same thing. And the question that I have is this right of way or are rights of way generally under any circumstances revocable?
Thank you. Mr. Sharp?
Thank you, Chair. That is correct. There was not a donation of land. It was rather a requirement through a condition that the applicant grant the township a right of way. So the applicant, Mr. Niblett, still owns the land that forms the right of way. What he did was grant the township a right to cross that land or cross his land. And yes, I'm obviously not a lawyer, but it is my understanding that rights of way can be extinguished provided the party that has the benefit of the right of way agrees to the right of way being extinguished. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards?
I'm just going back and not because we do an awful lot of applications, but I think at the time I mentioned taking it as parkland dedication, which then we would have owned it. We wouldn't have had this. I don't know what the cost difference would be. Maybe staff can tell me. Thank
Okay. Mr. Sharp?
Through you, Chair. I'm not sure what the cost difference would be, but I do know that based on the conditions that were approved by council, it was clear that at that time, council did not want or wish to take the land as parkland. Council opted to require the right of way. And as I had indicated, reduce the cash in lieu of parkland amount from 5% to 1%. Thank you.
Thank you. CAO Pink, did you want to add?
Thank you. Through you. I don't think staff would be able to know the value of the land, as we would need to appraise that land. But the difference was, instead of paying cash in lieu of parkland, we would have physically acquired the land instead. So there would be no cost financially to the applicant, other than the actual donation of the land. And as we heard, reducing the 5% value of the entire lands would have been about $20,000. Their cash in lieu of parkland fees was reduced to approximately $5,000 as a result, from going from 5% to 1%.
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz.
Well, thank you, and through you. So to clarify, for Mr. Niblett to give the township right of way, he's out of pocket $3,000 and some odd dollars. Is that how I understand it? And that's what he's here for, asking us to excuse the 3,000 and or absorb it?
CAO Pink? Oh,
Essentially, yes, that is correct. It's a small point of clarification. I think the actual legal fee was approximately 27 and odd. There's been interest charges owing that has now increased it to slightly over $3,000. But the delegate is looking for a refund of those fees.
okay, so I think we've had many questions. Thank you, Mr. Niblett, for your delegation today. As with the others, we will be discussing this a little bit further along in our agenda. It is 20 after 10. I'm going to suggest we come back at 25 to 11, 15-minute comfort break. Okay, thank you.
Here or not.
Okay, we are now going to move on to item 8A. I welcome our Director of Financial Services. Director Donaldson, welcome.
Morning, committee.
Morning.
So the recommendation this morning before committee is to replace our aging copier fleet. It was procured in 2017 under the Ontario Educational Collaborative Marketplace Program, which is a group buying entity for government not-for-profits. Staff is recommending to use this group again to source our copier needs this year. Working with our IT managed service provider at Lake Country Office Solutions, who will service the fleet. We looked at two options this year: replacement with the same manufacturer of machines we have now, and a new, more green option using an Epson new technology called heat-free ink printers that support lower power consumption and less supply waste to landfill. In alignment with our strategic priorities, consideration of the costs, and the product's reported performance, we're recommending replacement of our current fleet with this Epson product. And staff are also recommending a lease arrangement. While the capital budget does include a provision for purchasing, as a result of the lower leasing costs compared to our current fleet and the need for cash in other areas where we have capital needs, staff are of the opinion that the leasing option is viable, and adding the cost of financing is not material to the overall operating plan. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, committee, I do have a resolution, but do we have any questions for Director Donaldson? Councillor Rosenworth.
Thank you, and through you. Often it's good to look at life cycle costs, total operating costs of when you're making an investment like that. Do you have some comments about how the purchase versus lease and changing of the type of the make of printer? How do you look at the total operating cost?
Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So the majority of the copying and printing that gets done here at the township is through one particular machine, which is in the supply room, which is located close to where I sit. And the costs for the replacement machine versus the machine we have now on an operating basis, cost per copy, color and black and white, are very comparable. So I wouldn't see any significant changes there. I think where there's savings again is around the operation of the machine through its energy efficiency. With the current laser printers, there's a lot of energy draw because there's a heating up process where it's running the paper through. This is all kind of not your traditional ink printer, but it does have that ink technology where it's instantaneous print. And of course, I'm giving you the marketing speech that I was given, but it's instantaneous print, good quality, and a lot less waste through the use of the ink versus toner cartridges and those types of things.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa.
Was that Shaq that taught you that, or just wondering, because I was in town.
Just chill and fill.
I have a question for David Pink through you. David, I'm wondering if this particular ask, quite frankly, shouldn't be here. And if this is something that could be added to a list of moving forward, staff should be able to order this on their own.
Thank you. CEO Hammond, or you asked me to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, I think I had similar sentiments. Certainly staff can look into delegation of authority and whether matters such as this could be delegated to staff.
Thank you. I will read the resolution moved by Council. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Roberts.
I don't read it, Chair. So I had put it up just quickly there. I just would suggest to staff that you really, the cost of copying of color versus black and white is significant. If anyone's had gone into Staples when you ask for color. So just with, a suggestion that you remind staff, if they can print in black and white, they should, because I know that if one of the municipalities that I'm familiar with, color was a significant cost of printing. So they're coaching their staff to stay away from color if you can just use black and white. So just a suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, through the chair. So if we're leasing and we take 66 month leases, it's costing us basically 22,822.86. If we were buying, it's what is it, 18,000 some odd? So it's probably worthwhile leasing, and of course, you've got your copy costs on top of that. But and I think what was there, 50,000 in the original for that? So we are well within our budget, are we not? Thank you.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Nishikawa, seconded by Counselor Roberts. Be it resolved that committee approve the township's participation in the Ontario Education Collaborative Marketplace Program for Print Imaging Technologies, and that the 2024 capital budget be amended to cancel project 24184 photocopiers for $50,000, and that the Director of Financial Services be authorized to execute the lease agreement with Wells Fargo for printer and copier replacement as outlined in report FIN-2024-011. Are there any further comments? All those in favor? That carries. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, our next report is our Deputy Treasurer. Welcome.
Good morning. The report that I'm discussing is the results that up to the end of the second quarter, and the actuals are compared to the full year budget, and the prior year is to June 2023. Normally this is just for information, but on this report, we have a recommendation that we move the maintenance related budget items from legislative services and library to facilities. The move relates to already approved budget, so there's no additional costs. The move is better to reflect the accountability of the maintenance function. And in the report, we did move the numbers so that the report does reflect how the changes would look going forward. And in the report, we are at 49% of the budget remaining with half a year left. A number of the variances, as normal, are seasonal and related to timing of services. At this point, we still feel that we are within target to be at budget at the end of the year. And on this report, some of the key variances to the end of the quarter are salaries and benefits are under budget due mainly to vacancies. Utility maintenance is over budget due in part to higher utility costs and also repairs related to in various departments. One of the ones, professional fees are under budget, mainly due to consultant fees that have not been utilized to the end of June. One of the main items is a septic reinspection program that has started, but the bulk of the work will be done over the summer and into early fall. And with that item, it also impacts the variance in the cost recoveries. Our transfer to reserve is over budget due to a few factors. The main one is higher interest transferred than was budgeted, one-time grants, and the sale of equipment. And the investment income variance is due to higher interest rates than was budgeted. And for capital, the council had approved $9,323,200 for 2024 and have approved an additional $1,026,085. And then we also had a number of projects that were carried over from previous year. And to the end of June, we've spent about approximately $4.8 million. 43% of that spend relates to projects prior to 2024, and the remaining 57% is for projects that were approved in 2024, which also does represent about 30% of the 2024 budget. And looking back over the number of years, it is traditional to expect more spend in the last two quarters. So we do expect to see more spend in the capital budget over the last two quarters. And if you have any questions.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. On the revenue side, I noticed the recoveries where we had 65% of the plan to go. You had mentioned something. I think there's something about expenses and recovering kind of offsetting each other. If you could just help me, because that's the total number for the budget is it's a large budget number. It's 1.7 million. But we got 65% to go. So can you just help me with that?
Yeah, one of the main features is a septic reinspection. $350,000 item. And we've only spent a small portion of that. I know we've seen invoices in July that will, and once we get the invoices for the septic reinspection, we will bill them out to the various people that they are applicable to.
So I would, if I had picked that up, I would have seen an a similar reduction in the cost as well, or at least a delay between the cost. Okay.
Yeah.
May I have a second question? Just clarification for me, when we show actual capital expense, they are from both last year and this year. But we build the capital plan. Do we build that into the capital plan that we've got spillovers, or did the capital plan only include things that we plan to at least approve and start this year?
Through you. We did identify items at the end of the year that were in progress or committed to that we would carry forward.
Okay.
And so they were included in the budget when we approved the budget?
Director Donaldson?
Thank you, through you, Chair. So the practice we typically use is if a project is budgeted in a given year and it started in that year, we will accrue whatever costs we can to that given year, but the project will allow to continue to spill over into a future year. So what we're seeing in these projects are, they weren't included in the 24 budget, they were approved in the 23 budget, but they're still finishing up in 2024. So that's what we're seeing, is those costs still kind of trickling in on those projects that are finishing up.
Okay, thank you.
I feel like I saw somebody else's hand up for a question. Okay, no questions? Okay, I will read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that the 2024 operating budget be amended as per policy CFS-01 to increase the facilities budget by $182,700 and reduce the legislative services budget by $125,000 and the Muskoka Lakes Public Library budget by $57,000. Are there any comments? Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you. And perhaps this would be more of a public works thing, but as we're coming into that third quarter, presuming that things like the Sunset Park dock rebuild, which hasn't even begun to start yet, would certainly be sensitive to this budget going into the third and fourth quarters. And so I'm not sure if this is a time to ask about a few of those sort of capital projects. I mean, in terms of an update, there doesn't seem to be another opportunity to get that kind of an update. I'm being asked by many people, what about the dock? And here it is, essentially, in the middle of August and nothing. So, thank you.
Director Donaldson or Director Colucci? Specific to that one project, I guess, or?
Through you, Madam Chair. I'll have to check with staff on that, but I'll get back to you later in the meeting. I'll email Corey because I know it's underway, but I don't know when they're starting.
And Director Donaldson?
It's not in regard to Councillor Zavitz's question. I just did notice a slight typo in the resolution. The amounts should be perfectly offsetting. We have an increase of 182.7. We have a decrease of 125 and 57. And I believe the decreased legislative services should be 125,700, so that the two, so that all nets to zero.
Thank you.
So apologies for that mistake.
And just as a follow-up then to Councillor Zavitz's question, if there are capital projects that are happening within this year, and we're looking for status updates, obviously it does connect with the budget that we're seeing in front of us because we've approved those projects. How do we then get status updates on those capital projects appropriately?
So through you, Chair. So I know that the financial services area does do extensive discussions with directors and managers in the various areas just to get some sense of where their projects are at and where things are going. And if there's a desire on the will of council to formalize that and that feedback a little bit more, then we're happy to add that as part of this report.
Okay. Councillor Zavitz, would that satisfy?
Thank you, and through you. Well, to a point it does. You know, this would be a horrible time to start anyway. I mean, the dock at 90 feet is just completely at capacity in the heart of our summer. But there are a number of projects. So to that point, I'm sure, you know, whether it's in Hecla or in Torrance or wherever it is, I mean, I think we're still, if Torrance is any indication, there's probably a lot of money to come out of this budget in the second half.
Okay, thank you. I think I saw a hand up on the side. Okay. Okay, so I have amended the amount on this resolution. Do I need to read that again? Or is my amendment here? Okay. And I have to initial it. Thank you. So I have read the resolution. Oh, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, and through you, just supplement to Councillor Zavitz. I think it would be helpful to see just an update attached to this report, maybe with a few of the key big capital projects as you look at each period, still coming, targeted to start in August, still coming, targeted to start in November, delayed to 2025, each quarter when we get this very helpful report. So just I mean, for example, I'm trying to find out what was the cost of the wall over here, the Padura wall, and how are we doing on it? It's looking quite nice, but I don't know anything about the financial situation.
Thank you. So I think Director Donaldson, I see you nodding your head. You've taken note that we'd all like a summary in these reports of the status of key capital projects that
Yep.
are.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I don't have that information at my fingertips, but I certainly can get it for you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll ask the question. All those in favor? That carries. And thank you very much, Ms. Jeffrey, for your presentation today. Okay, moving on now to Mr. Cox, I believe, item 10A, our CIP.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of committee. My report this morning provides an overview of the public realm initiatives identified in the Muskoka Lakes Community Improvement Plan. So as committee will recall, the CIP contains both incentives for private sector investment as well as proposed public realm enhancements, capital projects that are taking place on generally on publicly owned land in the downtown cores of both Battle and Port Carling. This report seeks to bring together the project details, cost, and anticipated timelines for committee's information, and also seeks committee to confirm the approach that we have laid out in this report. The most significant distinction when looking over the projects for committee to bear in mind is the one between projects that will be fully funded from the municipal levy and those projects that will only proceed if the town is successful in obtaining exterior sources of funding. And the projects are broken down by those categories in the report. It should also be noted that there are several projects, specifically the ones related to streetscaping along Muskoka Road 118 and 169 that are either taking place completely or predominantly within an area of jurisdiction of the District of Muskoka and will require collaboration with the other tier of government and are outside of the ability of the township to do completely by themselves without exterior involvement. In all cases, staff are continuing to look for funding opportunities to offset project costs for any public realm CIP projects that are brought forward. The full details of the CIP projects in the public realm can be found in my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that committee may have at this time.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you, and thanks for the report. I guess I would draw your attention to, James, to the grant-dependent projects, item number 4. I'm totally embrace the CIP and everything that you have in your report. The streetscapes one, though, I find a little concerning because I find it a little, if I use the term, soft. I worry at the end, in the paragraph at the end of item 4, it says township staff have engaged the district in discussions regarding this project and encouraged these enhancements to be incorporated into the district's capital planning. Well, you know, they're on a different track than we are. This is our town, if you will, one of two. I'm going to be very selfish as a Ward A counselor. I think that the streetscapes piece is vital in Bala. I think that Ms. Ramsey came forward this morning, obviously indicating that, you know, they're on town water and sewer. So clearly it would make sense in terms of streetscaping to continue a new sidewalk to at least that rather large commercial venture. But more than that, there is this money, the monies from the Swift River Energy, you know, land lease over those years that has always been committed to and be isolated to Bala for some sort of improvement. I'm wondering if there's any interest here as this group to dedicate that money to this streetscaping. I mean, it's infrastructure, which is the direction of where the whole lease came from in the beginning. And it would certainly serve this, if we could go to the district and say, you know, we have a couple of $100,000 towards, it might be more palatable and might get this thing, it might get it moved, might get some activity, some interest, other than saying, can you build it into your 2028 budget? You know, I worry that there's too many projects in 6 municipalities. So I would ask, you know, your thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, through you, Madam Chair, I would be inclined to agree with that assessment about the importance of having municipal matching funds and trying to leverage any sort of external funding source. And again, the more commitment that a municipality can show towards a project already, the more palatable it is going to be to exterior funders. So with regards to the streetscapes particularly, the funding source, the exterior funding sources that we've identified are both from the federal government through FedNor and also through the active transportation funding that the District of Muskoka has. So that is something that we are certainly planning on working on over the coming year. But I would generally agree with the assessment of the importance of those funds.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Mayor Kelly?
Thank you, and through you, and it may not be the right place, maybe I can follow up afterwards, but since Councillor Zavitz raised this account with SREL, I either don't know or have forgotten what restrictions are on our ability to spend that money. And number two, I think I've asked before and was satisfied, we actually hold the funds. It's not just a right to collect later. Those are the two questions to whomever.
Okay. Mr. Cox?
And so through you, Madam Chair, I will perhaps look to Director Donaldson afterwards to confirm the details, but my understanding is that those funds were dedicated for the completion of public realm capital projects within the town of Bala.
And through you, Chair, just to confirm, those amounts were billed and received, so they are in our account.
Okay. Councillor Zavitz and then Councillor
Thank you.
Rosemore.
Just a point of clarification. I'm not so sure around this table that those funds were ever dedicated to any one thing except for some sense of improvement for the town of Bala. I don't believe that it was ever intended to be targeted to any one thing, if just in terms of the director's point. So just, I think that's important to note.
So it was a lot, my memory of this, and I think that's what it's a lump sum of money that is sitting in an account that is intended to be focused on Bala and enhancing the town of Bala. Correct?
Thank you, through you.
Yes.
So it was, and in fact, the previous mayor and the previous CAO would both, you know, were they here, would certainly, and I don't think it's more formal than that, certainly. I think it's on the record, for sure it's on the record, but that those monies were always dedicated, the lease monies of $192,000 were always set aside for however Bala decided at some point in time to use them, but that's pretty open-ended because who is Bala and what is the project and everything else.
So I think we've had this conversation before. That's why I'm glad that you reminded us by bringing this up today that we do have this money aside and it is intended for Bala, but it didn't have specific conditions around how that was going to get spent. So Councillor Nishikawa.
Sorry, my, through you, my recollection is different. Haven't been around long, but my recollection is very different. And in fact, it was more about how we would enhance the businesses that were affected by this situation that happened. And I would say we had someone come forward today, and we've had someone come forward in the past that actually their business was not part of the problem that we were experiencing, or other businesses were experiencing in the center of Bala, I would say, more primarily. But we also we were to get together with them to see what they would like to do. That was never, somehow we're forgetting that part of it, that we were actually going to include them. And it was not supposed to be part of the improvement plan. Like, we're not supposed to be lumping all this in. It was a separate and in fact, some had mentioned even doing a something on the water, a pavilion on the water or that sort. I just would like the community to still have an opportunity to weigh in, rather than this council make decisions for them. Because in fact, it was that community that was affected so badly.
Okay, so I'm here. That was so well said, all of that, and I didn't have my mic on. For those listening in the public, what we are going to do is separate the discussion from what we have in front of us today with the amount of the funding, the money that we have in the bank account that's dedicated to Bala through the SRLE project. We're going to have a separate conversation on that under new business today. So I will read this resolution. Moved by Councillor Bosemuth, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that Council confirms the Community Improvement Plan Public Realm Initiatives identified in Staff Report CED-2024-016, and that any final grant approval required for grant-dependent projects identified in Staff Report CED-2024-016, together with recommendations regarding matching municipal funds, be brought back to Council for final approval. So is there any further discussion? Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, and through you. I think to reinforce how well the CIP is working, if you were to drive through Bala last night, there was literally 1,682 people in Bala going to the Windsor Park ski show. Incredibly well attended in the middle of August. And of course, you know, the concert at the Key with Billy Idol. So, and notwithstanding the Bala Bay Inn being open and just all the activity, people stayed open. I mean, so the wayfinding signage, a lot of the things that we're doing are working. The places for people to sit and everything else. It's incredible to see that kind of humanity in one of our towns. So I just want to say, you know, I think it's great and totally supportive.
Thank you. And I would agree actually on the wayfinding signage. I just want to add, being in Bala a few weeks ago, midweek for one of those events, and the parking lot that we often say, I wish people would park it. I forget the name of it. The Precambrian parking lot was full. As was, I went over to Jaspin Park because I'd like to go and see how our park is doing now and then. It was half full. Like, so people are starting to actually understand how they can be part of this conversation. So thank you for bringing that up today. I have read the resolution. So any other comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you, that is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. We have unfinished business. I have nothing underneath there. So new business. I would like to take us back to the discussion from earlier today. Ms. Ramsey was talking about the extension of a walking or bike path on the section of Highway 169. So I'd like to open up to committee if they have any questions or comments. Councillor Burry.
Thank you. Through you, would it be appropriate to ask staff to come back with a report on a cost estimate to extend the sidewalk?
Okay.
I don't think we can make any kind of decision without understanding what it's going to cost us.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you, through you to Guy. Is our pricing going to be similar to the district's pricing?
Councillor Burry.
Thank you. I mean, we are a municipality, as is the district, and it seems like municipalities pay far more than private sector for the same quality and quantity of work. But that's just my personal
Sorry,
observation.
what's going though is if this is going to be a district responsibility, should we be getting them to price it out?
Thank you. CAO Pink. Oh my gosh, this is going to be hard.
I think maybe to just resolve the matter, I think certainly staff will review that in a future report, should it be committee's wish to explore the matter. My understanding, I'm not an expert on it, but in speaking with Mr. Director Colucci, depending on traffic volumes, the district may contribute financially to that project or they may not. Those are all things we could explore together with the level of service study as well. Come back with a report and with those budget implications, and committee can decide whether to proceed with the project.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you, through you to David. Some time ago, the property beside the golf range, I guess I'll call it that now, was designated commercial. It was going to be a bug box store at one time. Way back when, David. Remember? I'm just wondering, does that come into play when we have these conversations of what those other lands are designated?
Thank you.
We may, obviously we'd have to sit down and look at, make sure we're talking about the same property. I think there's actually a large, believe it or not, industrial designated property to the north of the storage facilities. Again, that's something staff would consider in the upcoming report, whether sidewalks need to be further extended. But I think at this time that those lands are vacant, and I question whether the need for the sidewalk at this time, but that's something, again, staff would consider in their report.
Okay. Thank you. Wasn't sure what was happening there. Councillor Kent.
Can I just request that when you bring the report back, you put a map in? I went in online and looked at the map of Bell, and it just shows you can show us where the original piece is, what the addition would be. Because us people who are not as familiar with Ball's streetscape, it would be helpful to understand it. Thank you.
That's a good idea. Okay, are there any other comments? Because I do have a resolution that has just been drafted. I can read. Okay, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, through you. I just would ask that your resolution refers to Councillor Burry's commentary about a staff report coming back. Is that what this is?
That's correct.
Going to reflect. Thank you.
And I will move, I'll put you as the mover. How about that? And okay, so moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Burry. Whereas committee received a delegation from Ms. Kelly Ramsey Bentley requesting an extension of a sidewalk or a walking bike path leading to 3234 District Road 169 Bala. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to review the proposal and report back to committee with cost estimates and recommendations. All those in favor? Thank you. The next delegation was about the Acton Island Road condition. Both items B and C, I would suggest we just talk about together. I wanted to get some thoughts from committee. Councillor Kent.
I have a, thank you, and through you, I have a question I think is for Nick. I didn't understand, I thought it said that our roads got resurfaced, that type of road, every 7 to 10 years, and this was gonna be at the 10-year point. And then we're talking about, then I heard at the same time that it wasn't till 2028 that it was gonna get resurfaced, so if you could clarify, I thought if we're on the 10-year point, it should be getting resurfaced this year. So I was just wondering
No, I think
what the,
that,
what the facts were.
I think that's a very good point. I probably should have started with staff. Sorry, Director Colucci, because I do believe you've gone on to see the road yourself to make sure that you could provide us with some thought initially. So I'll turn this over to you, Director Colucci.
Right, through you, Madam Chair. So we don't really have a set time or a calendar clock that determines when we resurface roads. That's why we do pavement condition index and road need studies periodically. Same with our bridges. We do a bridge need study, every 2 years. And that sort of determines the priorities. The last road need study was done in 2019. And, it determined a 6 to 10 year time frame for resurfacing acted road, which would put it around 2030. 2029, 2030, depending on the section of road. So I believe it was 2014 was the last time it was resurfaced, but it is maintained periodically, right? So every year we do ongoing maintenance, so pothole repairs and spot repairs and edge treatments. So there is the first section of the road that comes off the highway is a little bit worse shape than the rest of it past the bridge. The section, the North Acton Road, that's the district road, was all resurfaced just a few years ago. So that's in pretty good shape. But the other section that goes to the highway, from the one side of the bridge is in a little rougher shape than the rest of it that goes all the way to the end of the road. So, we have identified those issues to staff and they will take a look at it and do some interim repairs. But, as far as setting the capital budget, that's why we use the engineering data from the road needs study to set that capital budget, because we have 350 plus kilometers of road and we have to base it on engineering data to set that capital plan, right? So we have hundreds of roads that need repair, and if we don't use engineering data to set that, then we're actually not meeting the requirements of the asset management plan, right? So that's why we sort of use that data, and we're updating it this year. And in next year's budget, you may see a different 10-year capital plan for the roads, because some of the priorities may change based on the degradation that's happened over the last 5 years.
So just so I can summarize, just for 1 second, I think it's important to note, so this, the roads need study has gone, we have our technical experts who have gone out and done an analysis based upon a number of pieces of criteria to determine an appropriate capital plan. And every road is then given a grade, let's call it, and they're taking care of it appropriately. I'm looking at you, Director Colucci, to make sure I don't get offside. And it's hard for us to deviate really from that plan, because that's a plan that our experts have created internally, because they're the ones that have actually been out looking at the entire township and every single road out there. So I guess the question would be, in this particular case, you've noted there's 2 parts to this road. From a condition standpoint, they kind of fit within probably a normal experience in your tenure here at the township. It's kind of a normal road, or how would you condition it?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the pavement condition index for all 3 segments of that road are 71 or 72. So that's basically in the upper half of our roads, right? So they're in fairly good condition compared to other roads. So there's probably 70% of the roads are in worse condition than that road. That's based on the pavement condition assessment.
Okay. Thank you. I feel like just before Councillor Zavitz, I think Councillor Kent, you're okay? So Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, and through you. I think what's exacerbated this situation is the access to the main Acton Island Road, which is beautifully paved by the district. Our road is brutal, and we spoke about this at the break. I would be surprised if we would view that as a 70% road. You can't fix that road. I mean, it needs to come up and be redone. And it's the access to it. And then, and in terms of the rest of Acton Island Road, that's got to be a $2 million job. So that's like a whole other, to my mind, is a whole other thing. But it's that ingress and egress, I suppose, to both aspects of Highway 169. It is not good.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burry and then Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, through you. And my understanding also, like this is a classic example of why roads at 2 tiers doesn't work. And I'll go on record as having said that. So where we transition from district to township and back is where it's not working. The district put in a new bridge. It is on a slightly different angle. And apparently there are some tree limbs that prohibit people from seeing, and it's a 1-lane bridge, from seeing each other coming to it. And several people have said to me that they think there's going to be a fairly major head-on. Now, it's a district road, yet it's on our township property. So we probably need to take some responsibility for that. And there are issues because the district did pave it really nicely. People go real fast. So there's a bunch of things that are happening on Acton Island that are, causing serious problems. And I think that's why we're hearing multiple comments about the road. And I think that Councillor Zavitz has hit the nail on the head that the district did a really nice job repaving the bridge in that part. And it has made the rest of the road look terrible.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, and just to probably state the obvious, everybody's road is the worst road in the place. There's no doubt about it. Everybody has the worst road. Oh, there you go. So the reality is that's why we have independent analysis done for us to identify and prioritize the work that needs to be done. That's why we can't stick to any particular schedule or pre-planned tenure. We'll repave it. We've got to respond to the changing conditions of the road, measured as objectively as we can, and understand that most people don't get very far beyond their own road, and they think their road is the travesty. Having spent a chunk of this summer traveling on probably hundreds or 100 or 2 of the kilometers of road, there are some roads that need attention. I think Ziska Road took a couple of my teeth out. There's pieces of, Ross Trevor Road, although I was back last Saturday and somebody's done a lot of good work in there in the last couple of weeks. Ross Trevor Road, everybody's road's bad. We just have to make sure, given our limited resources, that we're focusing on patching and repairing what catastrophic failure has happened that we need to get on right away, and sticking to the priority established for us. It's apolitical. It's engineering is what it is in terms of identifying when and how we invest in a complete rebuild.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to the director. I seen quite a few years ago, there's a machine that you can get that does patching. Is that better than just hand patching?
Thank you. Director Colucci.
Through you, Madam Chair. So yeah, there is equipment that you can, we don't own that equipment, so we'd have to rent it. And the problem with obtaining equipment to rent for a small municipality, it's very difficult because there's only a few pieces that are available. It does a similar job to hand patching. It's just that you could do more of it in a day, right? So that's the type of thing. But we have talked about it in the roads department about looking at possibly getting some of that for next year if we can actually find someone in this area that rents that.
And that supplementary, what would the cost of us buying one be? Like, I know it's an outlay at the start or leasing one, and then and that going from there, as you say, we can do more patching with it. From what I've seen and read on it, it seemed to be a little bit better because it also compacts it, which we just seem to throw a little bit of asphalt in and then run buck over it or that.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that, you know, there are a few models and they range in about 150,000 to like 500,000, depending on which one you get. There's like a self-propelled model that dispenses the, you know, for one person to do. So, you know, that is something, but I think that with the volume of pothole repairs we have, we would have limited use for a whole year. So probably renting it for a month would be enough to fix all the potholes we have. And it's, you know, much, you know, cheaper to do that. And you could probably rent it for 7 to 10 years before you paid for buying one.
Thank you. So, committee, as far as next steps, I'm sensing that, you know, identify that our roads need attention, and that talks to the earlier presentation on our level of service study, that that there isn't really a resolution for this, that we just have to allow staff to work the plan that they have. Is that correct? Okay. Oh, Councillor Bosemarth?
Yeah, I would just add that the Acton Island residents should be well aware that the roads are going to be reassessed, or are in the process, or soon going to be reassessed. And they should watch for the results of that assessment and figure out when their road is going to get done. That will be the answer. They will get their answer through that process.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. The next one was the waiving of the request to waive the fees. And I would like to come back to Councillor Nishikawa had asked a question. And I think in response to her question, I'm going to ask CAO Pink to kind of help us understand, because this was a bit of an, as Mr. Bryce walked us through the history, it's not a common thing to have come forward through planning committee. And I think that we want to try and understand, we had a clear understanding, I think, from Mr. Stewart, Mr. Sharp. Oh my gosh, what has happened to me? No, it's happening. It's happening. It's the chair. Sorry. Mr. Stewart. I don't even know where that even came from. I haven't done anything to the two of you. Oh my goodness gracious. Let's just start this fresh here. I am going to ask CAO Pink to lead off this discussion, if I could, please, in response to Councillor Nishikawa's.
Thank you. That's a tough act to follow.
I think I'm going to turn my mic off.
I think what I'd just like to clarify and just clear the record, so to speak, is I didn't want to give the impression, and I think that was what Councillor Nishikawa was referring to and what the delegate was referring to, that property owners who come to the municipality with offers of donation of land are then approached to pay legal fees, surveying costs, etc. I think typically in those instances, and I think there is a policy, I apologize, I'm not explicitly familiar with the specifics, but I think even the policy would reference that the municipality would typically absorb those costs. However, in this case, the request happened to come together with an application for consent. And again, just sort of to back up or to clarify, I think if the delegate had approached the municipality and wished to donate the said lands that were being referred to, again, my experience is council would likely have directed staff that no fees be accompanied with that, legal costs, surveying costs, etc. However, again, the request came together with a consent. There was a lengthy discussion and debate around the committee council table during that process, and it was determined that the right of way was appropriate as opposed to the land donation, and that the cash in lieu of parkland be reduced from 5% to 1% in lieu of those costs. And no direction, as Mr. Sharp indicated, was given to staff to waive those fees. So in essence, what it sort of boiled down to is, yes, the council or committee could have directed to absorb roughly $2,700 in legal fees. However, instead, the applicant benefited from potentially a $20,000 cash in lieu of parkland dedication down to $5,000. So I think the savings are actually quite significant for them in comparison of the two. And that was, again, the specific direction. Ultimately, Again, what you see is there's a planning services agreement that's signed with applications, and the applicant signed and is responsible for township disbursements and costs in processing their application. Staff doesn't have any authority or really ability to waive those at our discretion. So the matter is before you, should you wish to refund it or waive the bill, in essence, waive the invoice. Staff will take that direction. But I thought that a bit of background might help in addition to Mr. Sharp's excellent background.
Thank you. Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to advise you that I have come up with the numbers that were requested if you feel that would be helpful.
Thank you. Well, yes, I would. Thank you. Sorry, I thought you were going to provide them. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. So yeah, it's the acreage of the severed lot was roughly 2 acres. The area of the right of way was roughly 250 square feet, and the percentage of the total area of the severed lot was about 0.3%.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you. So I don't know why I'm confused, but it would seem to me that, and I sat here the last time this came forward in the last term of council. I believe that our responsibility is to enact whatever was agreed at that time. And that's to that extent. I shouldn't be deliberating now on forgiving anything more than what was the arrangement? What was the deal that we made sitting here in 2021? What was that? What are we supposed to accommodate? And then why don't we just do that?
Thank you. And I think Mr. Sharp.
Through you, Chair, and thank you for your question. You know, to date, you know, there has been requests to not require the applicant to pay the amount, and those requests haven't been approved. Of course, I don't think at a staff level we have the authority to do that, which is why we're here today. Given the, you know, all the background and history that I've provided, you're right, council made a decision. They imposed conditions. The facts of the matter are that a right of way was taken as part of the consent application, and staff's position has been that the applicant is required to pay the fees that are associated with the conveyance of that right of way. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Zavitz.
Subsequent. Thank you, and through you. So I'm not sure if we would even know if that was a unanimous decision by general, I guess it would be council at that time. Again, I wouldn't be interested in accommodating anything more than we had agreed to in that original agreement. I wouldn't be interested in forgiving fees now, some 3 years later. If everyone agreed and if it was a unanimous decision, perhaps to go ahead with that agreement, including the landowner. So again, I'm a little confused as to why we're discussing this, but I certainly wouldn't be in favor of passing any money or forgiving any legal fees.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sharp.
Thank you. With respect to adding a bit of clarity, I mean, put simply, the applicant is delegating before you, and they're requesting that those fees be waived, and staff are in essence looking for direction from council because it's sort of gotten to that point. Thank you.
Correct. So just to clarify, it's like any other time if somebody has come before us and asked us to waive for a fee. But the history has, I think what you've kind of eloquently noted is that the previous body sitting around this table had approved an arrangement that what I'm being reminded of was actually financially in the interest of the applicant to say, like, they benefited that financially. And so we're just sitting here today discussing if they want to further waive fees. So Councillor Bozemarth.
Thank you, Chair. I went back and rewatched the February 2021 meeting for this period. It was a very interesting meeting, and I must say that Mr. Niblett, the first thing out of his mouth after he had introduced himself was, I want to protect that right of way for snowmobilers. And as a snowmobiler, I can tell you that that is just incredibly key. There is no other way other than through Port Sandfield, which can be highly treacherous. And it's a nasty way to get from lake to lake. From the top of Joe to the very bottom of Joe and Russell, there's no other way to get back and forth between those two lakes. And it is heavily used by snowmobilers, fishermen, anybody who wants to go for a walk. So I think, you know, we need to be thanking Mr. Niblett very much for that. A second point was he was quite willing to donate the land, but the discussion in the meeting went along this line, that if he if he was going to get cash in lieu of, he would have to donate 5% of the land. And if he did 5% of the land, he had a lot that wasn't big enough to be severed. So that discussion stopped. What it didn't consider is, well, if he just gave 0.3% of the land, then cash in lieu would be reduced by a very small amount. He could have donated the land, would have had to pay most of the cash in lieu of parkland, because he donated 5% of his land. So they'd immediately turn, and I think it was the mayor's suggestion at the time that he give a right of way. And so the council landed on the right of way. And in fact, Mr. Niblett's consultant said that there was a strong preference for the right of way. So they ended up with the right of way, and they ended up with 1%. I guess one would think that a reduction of 5% to 1% is pretty generous, considering the donation was only 0.3% of the land. So it has been, the council will just by it how it happened has been quite generous. That said, I think, you know, when people are doing something as important to the community as this is, we should give it some consideration.
Okay. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm supportive of what Councillor Bosenworth had just talked about. And later on in this meeting, I'm going to make reference to a similar type of access for skidoo, for motorized snow machines, where the property owner elected not to allow these devices across their property. And it's looking at now at a $1.4 million to fix that denial of property, where we have someone who wants to keep it, and it's a bottleneck, and it's a safety issue as well to go someplace else. So I'm in support of this constituent or this property owner, even though he did get the $15,000 benefit, another $3,000 to keep a choke point available to this industry and to all the area residents is pretty a good investment, in my opinion.
Thank you. Mayor Kelly.
Thank you. And through you, I want to just look at this through a different filter. I haven't gone back and looked at the tape. I'm relying on staff reporting. I'm relying on Councillor Bosenworth's interpretation. But forget who it is, what it is, and everything else. We have a $3,000 debt. I think we're closing in on 25 grand worth of time on it today, right now, in this room with staff and councillors to try to collect a $3,000 debt. At some point in time, this becomes sort of practically frankly ridiculous to pursue. I realize there's a principle and I realize there's a precedent, but every half hour we spend talking about this, we're spending $3 grand over and over and over to try and figure out how to collect $3 grand. It just doesn't seem to make a ton of sense to me.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Nishikawa.
I would like to bring forward a motion, if that's what we can be doing right now, that in fact this $3,000 be waived.
Okay.
Or whatever the amount is.
Okay, so I do have oh, okay, no, that's fine. We have hands up. So thank you. Councillor Kent.
I was gonna say less than 3,000. not be waived. I was gonna say, I thought we should say that the fees not be waived. The township has been more than generous in the $15,000 reduction to the fees that would have been required on consent. So
Okay,
just,
so
it
this
doesn't matter which way the
yeah.
resolution goes.
Well, there's going to be a resolution, and I think it is a bit divided around this table. So I think, yeah, so staff is helping me shape their draft a resolution, but I'm just going to hear from Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, this is a hard one, you know, it's $3,000, as they said. He did get a benefit of an extra lot, which I'm sure is very expensive to buy or sell. If we're gonna give him the 3,000, maybe he should deed it over to the township. And on the severance there, if they took that 8 to 10 feet off, would that have affected the lot as far as building and that? So it may have been a 2-story boathouse, I don't know. And that with the frontage was on that lot, with or without it, and that. But I think in future, when we're doing it, we should take it. And another thing, if it's so important to the snowmobile club, maybe they could donate the $3,000 to Mr. Niblett. And that, but I think we made the deal in 2021. I think we should stick with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There is a motion on the floor. Councillor Nishikawa brought that up, being reminded here. So I'm just trying to see if there's a seconder for that motion. Okay, Councillor Roberts. Are there any other comments or discussion points at this point? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I will just read the resolution that has been drafted. And then I think we'll have a discussion and vote. Okay. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Whereas committee received a delegation from Mr. Steve Niblett requesting the waiving of township legal fees pertaining to granting a right of way through a condition of consent application B 2520-ML. Now therefore be it resolved that committee approve waiving the township legal fees in the amount of $3,007.34. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Bosemuth?
Did you say that we consider waiving it? I just wanted to be clear on the wording. I couldn't hear
That
it quite
committee
well.
approve waiving, not consider, we would approve waiving the
Thank you.
township legal fees.
Thank you. I didn't hear you.
Of course. Director Peroshi?
Just a note procedurally on this matter, because the resolution was not in the agenda, it would require 2/3 vote. 2/3.
Or 2/3 need. Thank you. Could you kindly clarify?
Thank you, through you. The matter is on the agenda because there's under new business, we've listed that we're going to be discussing the matter. So you don't necessarily need to have the discussion or put it on the floor. But because the resolution itself wasn't in the agenda, it requires 2/3 vote to pass. So because there was a notice of the resolution in particular, and you're making a decision. So you're not just directing staff, it's an actual decision. If it was just directing staff to do something, you don't need that, but you do when it's a final decision.
Okay. Councillor Burry?
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Sharp, got the right last name. This is a deeded right of way. Registered on title.
Through you, Chair. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so this is really important to our winter snowmobiling community, and it's a deeded right of way, so it's there. It's not going to be taken away. So I think that's just an important point. It's a deeded right of way, and it is, as Councillor Bosemuth said, the only access between Joe and Rosso that's safe.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, through you. You know, certainly with the bent toward, and I hear what the mayor's saying, but with the bent towards the snowmobile scenario, you know, yes, I mean, that adds a real wrinkle to this thing. And, you know, I don't want to do anything to not support the existing snowmobile access. So if, and I'm not a snowmobiler, so I didn't know, I'm not sure that how important this is, but I certainly wouldn't want to, especially if there's going to be other discussions this afternoon on snowmobile trails in the township Muskoka Lakes. It's almost premature to have this discussion. Maybe there isn't, sorry, but my point would then be, I would be in support of excusing the $3,000 because I don't want to do anything to impact negatively the snowmobile activity.
Councillor Ken?
Am I confused though? We're talking about $3,700 and he got a $15,000 reduction in his consent fees. So I just feel like, why do we feel a need to grant more? That was the deal that was agreed upon before my time on this commission. It's a lot of money that he got already and, or reductions that he got, and this is sort of standard legal fees. Anyway, just a question for thought.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa?
I did want to say, I don't want to discourage people coming forward to fix the issues that we can't fix. And that has been my experience for many, many years here, that if we wanted a trail, volunteers had to go out and do it. And this is more or less the same kind of conversation that others are going to be providing service. And I feel that that should be recognized in a positive light.
Okay. I can't remember if I've read this. I did read this. Okay. Councillor Bosenworth?
Just to be clear, the resolution is that we are to waive the fees, correct?
I will reread
Thank you.
it just to be sure. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Roberts, whereas committee received a delegation from Mr. Steve Niblett requesting the waiving of township legal fees pertaining to granting a right of way through a condition of consent application B 2520-ML. Now therefore be it resolved that committee approve waiving the township legal fees in the amount of $3,007.34. Okay. No more comments. I will call the question. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 60%, right?
So counseling, different questions. So the matter's on the agenda, that's why we're.
Sorry, Councillor Nishikawa did ask a question, and I think just because we have a side conversation happening, I just want to make sure everybody is hearing. I think Councillor Nishikawa had asked.
Well, I had thought we were first asking whether we can even have this vote. So I thought we required 2/3 of recognition that we're going to bring this resolution forward because it hadn't been on the agenda. And I realized the topic was, but not the resolution. And so that's why I thought we were going to first have the vote for the 2/3, and then we would have a vote on the balance. And if that's the case, I would have actually asked for a recorded vote, but I was confused about where you're at with the 2/3.
Okay, so Director Proshi?
Through you, because this is a fairly new process where we've been adding the item underneath in new business. This wasn't prior practice even 6-8 months ago. We've been using that it's on the agenda, that you don't need to have a resolution to put it on the floor. However, that wasn't the practice before because we haven't been putting that there. So if Councillor Nishikawa would request that we have the resolution to even put it on the floor first, I'm comfortable doing that, only because that was the practice prior.
Okay, so now I feel like I've read this though. Is that, and I even called the vote and it didn't pass? Okay. So I really want to make sure we're clear, including myself, that because this was an item that was actually on our agenda, but there was no attached resolution. What needed the 2/3 vote was actually what we just voted on, which was the actual resolution. And that's different than other times when we've had items under new business, because this is a specific direction that is being, like, this is a final decision. It's not directing staff to come back with a further report. This is us giving staff direction to waive township fees. So I think that required what I've heard from our director Hiroshi is that we need 2/3 vote.
Because of the resolution.
So when I read the resolution, I called the vote. There were 6 hands up. And I'm hesitating with procedure because I don't think I can redo that at this point. Because it's happened. I can clarify that vote if we are looking for that, but my sense was it was 6-4. Is that correct? Okay. So, Councillor Bosemuth?
Chair, you could ask for all those opposed because you didn't do that. That would just clarify.
Okay, that's a great suggestion here. All those opposed. So that is defeated, and so there we go. Okay. We are now going on to the District of Muskoka updates. And so similar to how we've been doing over the last couple of months, we have changed it. So if committee members have had a chance to look through those agendas from past month, if there's any question for our district councillors, this is your opportunity to ask. And I believe Councillor Roberts, you do have one, so I'll let you lead off.
And thank you, Madam Chair. So at last District Public Works Committee meeting, District Staff communicated that the temporary bylaw that allowed motorized snow vehicles access to Highway 118 to and from Brackenrig and Carr Road, they identified that the bylaw had expired, and staff did not support an extension of that temporary bylaw that allowed motorized snow vehicles to go on that length of highway due to safety and liability concerns. I would ask the mayor, who sits on the Public Works Committee, to please provide your thoughts on a possible path forward to extend the motorized snow vehicle bylaw for 1 more year, which would allow us maybe to come to a more palatable solution for all parties. The facts are that throughout Ontario, there are thousands, literally thousands of motorized snow vehicle roads that are paths across highways. This highway is the only one in our that is restricted. This section, small section of highway, is the only one within the township of Muskoka Lake that is restricted. That ATVs are allowed with no restrictions to travel that same portion of highway. And the bylaw restricting or banning snow vehicles was put in place in 1998, which a lot has changed since then. And all, you know, they all could challenge, or we could all talk about the economic benefit that this industry has to our region. But if cutting off this one link between the north, which is or between Bracebridge, which I guess is on the east, and Port Carling, totally will eliminate any viable path through Port Carling. And there are other issues, but they'd force them down through Gravenhurst, which I think then people just go another route out of Muskoka. So over to you, Mayor Kelly. Thank you.
You pretty much nailed it. All right, through you, thank you, and through you. Just a couple of things. I'm probably going to repeat some of what's been said, but this is a prohibition from running not across the highway, but along the highway. Big difference there. And it's historical. It came with the download of Highway 118 to the district in 98, which is what, 26 years ago. And I think up until about 2019, it wasn't an issue primarily because there was enough private landowners nearby willing to make space available for snowmobile trails on their property that no one felt the need to run down that road. One new landowner bought the property and decided to terminate the rights and force literally the sleds to run, if they wanted to come into town, to run down the side of 118. It roughly runs from Brackenray Road to Carr Road, maybe a little bit shorter than that. The reason it's prohibited, as I understand it, is that it is deemed to be very unsafe to run sleds along that side of that road, not just for the sledders, but as I've been told, for also other vehicular traffic. It has to do with the way they have to plow the snow, as I've been told. Good news is, or sorry, the bad news is that they've had a couple of temporary exemptions to that bylaw to allow them to run on the roads for 2 or 3 years in a row. Each of those bylaws exemptions expires at the end of, I can't remember if it's either March 30th or April 30th, somewhere in there. So this license to run on these roads is no longer. This died in March or April. There was an application to re-up for 1 more year. Staff recommendation was, based on safety, that it not be allowed. It came to Public Works, as Councillor Roberts has suggested, as part of a consent agenda. It was pulled from the consent agenda, debated separately, and deferred. Essentially, it's still open for discussion. The deferral is basically into my lap to work with the Snowmobile Trail Associations, or association singular, the sledders who have interest, local landowners if possible, and also with district and possibly even with township roads folks to find a way to make it safe enough, or to at least understand why it's unsafe to continue with this traffic on the side of the road. I don't know the answer to that yet. That's part of what I need to find out. I know the folks from the Snowmobile Trail, Muskoka Lake Snow Trail Association, excellent group of people, dedicated, hardworking, clearing the trails, maintaining the trails, organizing events. Strangely enough, they all seem to be named Steve, so even the chair couldn't screw up that. But anyhow, so we'll be working with them as soon as we get a couple of things done this week and early next week when I'm at AMO in Ottawa. I'm going to sit down with them, understand what the issues are, work with Mark Misko and staff at District, understanding what the risk is and how we best mitigate the risk. I have volunteered to go with the Snow Trails folks to knock on doors on private property to see if there's anything more we can do to convince people to reopen private property. I believe them when they tell me that that's not going to happen. So we're trying to find a way to solve the problem. There were 3 or 4 different proposed ideas put forward from District. They had different degrees of expense, including, I think, $1.2 million to blast some rock or something. I actually am becoming convinced, based on information that I've been receiving over the last few days, that the 3 or 4 options, any one of them is less safe than continuing with the exemption. So that's the angle that I'm taking, is that we'll see what we can do to convince district staff that it is not as unsafe as was perceived to be, and deal with it either on an exemption basis, or if the safety issue is no longer, and I don't know why it would be, but if there's no real safety issue, then let's revoke it altogether and do away with the need for annual exemptions. That would be my goal.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you. Through you to the mayor. Did they also stop them running in Bracebridge along the side of 118 and crossing the road there?
I don't actually know if they did or they didn't, but I think a large part of the issue on the stretch of road in the township of Muskoka Lakes has to do with the rock face being so close to the side of the road and leaving insufficient room to plow snow off the road and maintain a trail up there at the same time. So I don't know what's going on outside of the township, to be honest with you. But I do understand that's the real issue here by Penwood Road.
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz?
No, thank you, and through you. Having been privy to most of the emails back and forth with Steve, I must say kudos to the mayor. I mean, that's the only solution that he's talking about. That is a maiden township of Muskoka Lake solution, so I applaud you. Otherwise, it isn't going to happen. Thank you.
Okay, so I see two more hands up. Councillor Bozemuth, Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, as a snowmobiler, I would say that it is very common for us to have to run on roads all over the province. And they are in various sizes and shapes. Snowmobilers do not like being on roads, so they get them off of them as quickly as they can. And they can go very quickly down the middle of an asphalt road if they have to, and that's usually the best way to get off the road as quickly as possible. So snowmobilers are very adept at running roads because they have to.
Thank you.
Through you, if I could, I forgot to mention, there is no EPW meeting in August. So this is to come back to committee September the 18th, I think, or 14th, mid-September.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts?
Thank you. And just my final point on this, the greater majority of that path, that trail from Carr Road to Brackenrig is not on the highway, is off the highway. And the maps that they have provided me show that, which I'll share with the mayor. And so there is possibilities for a solution, maybe just for this year, continue the same one and then let's put this to bed. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for those who have been actively involved. And I mean, we all have to divide and conquer. So thank you for those who are working hard towards solutions. Any other questions for our district councillors? I do have one, and it's actually on the planning agenda, but I suspect that Mayor Kelly might want to chime in as well. So I'm looking at both of you. Just to take a few minutes to expand on the skilled trades capacity building, the Georgian College report. I think it's an interesting project, but it's also a significant amount of money. So I think I just think it's important that we're understanding we hear oftentimes about our contribution. This is a new area, and I think it would be interesting for us to understand what's happening. So I don't know who wants to take the lead. Alan's looking at you.
Yes, thank you. Georgian College came, they wanted to expand their shops and that and start doing trades in that. So you go and learn. Being in the apprenticeship program and starting a lot of apprentices, I don't believe they have to go to school to learn it. They get a job and they learn on the job and that. But it was passed by council to this. See, what happens is these students go for 4 semesters and they're paying, I think it's $1,700 a semester. They could go out to a construction company, get a job and learn on the job, paid while they're learning and that, and then going. When you're in the apprenticeship program now, I think it's 3 8-week courses, depending on what trade you're in. There seems to be a backup of getting them into trade school because I think it's better to run students through the trade school rather than the actual apprentices in that. So there is a backup, but like I say, the district passed it. It's good for the area and that. But like I say, knowing the apprenticeship program, and I've probably trained 20 or more in that. I don't think it's necessary the way it was done, but that was passed by the district, and I'll support it at that time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelly?
Thank you. And just let me, through you, let me add just a quick bit of color. This actually is a program that is part of the Attainable and Affordable Housing Task Force at District, of which I'm the chair. We have sort of 3 slots for investment. One of them is in immediate need, the most urgent need for, temporary housing for addiction and homelessness. The second one is attainable and affordable, purpose-built rental and anything we can to encourage people to move into into the housing market, whether as a tenant or as an owner. The third one is kind of unique, and that's what this falls under, and it's capacity building. If we are going to meet the needs of the huge and extraordinarily quickly growing number of people without appropriate housing in this country, we have to build something like 1 house per hour every hour for the next 30 years, which is about 5 times as many houses as this country has ever managed to build at any one time before. In order to do that, we need to turn out people who are able to work on construction sites, work in home construction, carpentry, much faster than the apprentice system, traditional apprentice system can absorb them. There's just not that much opportunity for apprentice work. Georgian College has an established program in, I think it's called construction technology. It's kind of an entry-level construction technology program. They have a campus in Bracebridge. And what that segment of what we are trying to do is hoping to do is build the capacity to build houses right here. And so this funding, which is considerably large numbers spread over many years, but it's a lot of money, is to encourage the growth of their campus on, I think it's Ecclestone, or I don't know what street it is, in Bracebridge, Wellington, and bring people in and teach them, train them to be carpenter's assistants to go out and work on site. The soft bet is that to the extent that they are educated locally, they are more likely to be from local houses, and they're more likely to stay here and help us build houses. So really that's kind of the play, is to really ramp up on the number of people that can go through that school and come out ready to help the district of Muskoka meet the huge need for housing.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. I would also add to Peter, so the apprenticeship program has not worked well for many, many, many years in Muskoka. It used to be that you could have one lead could have 3 or 4 apprentices under them. That's no longer the option. That's not available, period. And so for that education, they almost do need to go to school. And I would say that there's other benefits to the program that I looked into, and even the touch of financial, like having that conversation about how you operate your business when you move forward. Those little touches are something that are very, very important moving forward that you don't get on a job site necessarily. So I'm glad that we're moving forward with this. The only thing, and I've said this already at district, I kind of wish the money wasn't coming out of the housing portion, because I would like to see eventually a report that all the money that we received for housing went to housing, specifically that someone was living in a building kind of thing. And so, but that's a different topic as well. Thank you.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I proceed, I'm just going to introduce one other point that I had to bring up that had nothing to do with what we just talked about. So is everyone okay with
Anybody else want to bring up
something on that item?
I do thank you, and it was a bit purposeful because I know that the Housing Task Force has been busy and working on different things, and we're focused on lifting people up. Education is a really important facet for whatever you choose to get into. So, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I got this item, or notified of this item just as it going out of the door this morning. And it's about the construction or the road building that we're doing on 118. If you've been down that way, they're going to be redoing the road from Kerry Glen Golf Course right up into Milford Bay. And there's a little lake along the highway. We refer to it as Lily Pond. And this is a noted turtle nesting area. And so I'll pass on to my colleagues that are on district, and probably is the mayor, is that if you would please reach out to the district road staff and say, please pay attention to the nesting sites and do whatever you can. There'll be people that will come out and move them. But they should be aware that there's a lot of nested areas along that highway, that stretch of highway. So everything they can do to protect the turtle would be much appreciated, somewhat like they did along, I believe it was Scarcliff, if I'm not mistaken, or Brackenray.
The Morris Road.
But Morris Road.
Director of
Yes,
Operations
Morris
had
Road.
actually worked with the community to make sure that the turtle nesting season was avoided, so.
So yes, yes, our Department of Public Works worked with the community to make sure that the nesting sites were protected. And it's something that no one really thought about, but we're right in the peak of nesting of turtles. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Mayor Kelly, that's noted.
Noted.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on district, any community events that anybody would like to bring up? Councillor Edwards, Councillor Roberts.
Sorry, I forgot to send it in. The Cherry Fox Run, the 25th of their anniversary is on September the 15th. You can sign up at between 8 and 9, and then the run starts at 9. And everyone's welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Roberts.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and mine is more of an update. You recall last spring, I came to speak to and introduce to committee that the Milford Bay community were sponsoring an Andy's House Hospice Muskoka awareness and fundraising campaign, and our objective was to raise $35,000. I'm here today to tell you that that campaign was extremely fantastic and successful. The committee of 4, which is Katsuudi, Jenny Fly, Lindsay Kay, and myself as the chair of the Milford Bay Community Center, we managed to raise over $46,000. And for Andy's House and Hospice Muskoka, more importantly, it was part of it, it was awareness of what the value that this building gives to the community and the importance. We had prizes that we collected and gave to Andy's House. And Andy's House, we're going to award these prizes, but I've got to say we got a lot of prizes, but notably we got from Home Hardware, from Indian River Trading Company donations of prizes, and from an artist, Carolyn Grand, of an $1,800 painting. And for every $25 donated, you got a ticket towards that. So thank you to those establishments. Now, I guess I finally want to say is that the Andy's House wants to do it again next year. And so I'll be reaching out. It's a big task, once you get organized. So we got the recipe to do this for Muskoka. So I'll be reaching out to the other hall board advisors and chairs to see how they can contribute and become this part of a fundraiser next year. And I can't say enough about the Momaris. It's a suburb of Milford Bay, for those who don't know it, but it's a very significant suburb and their contribution to this cause. So thank you to everyone that was involved, and stay tuned for next year. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we would all be remiss if we didn't say thank you to you, because you did take a lead role on that. And I know it's outside of your role as counselor, but having attended the event, Mayor Kelly and I were there, as was Councillor McIntyre. I believe Councillor Nishikawa came as well. I didn't happen to bump into her, but very well attended event. It was actually probably one of the best attended events I've seen this year. And a lot of different folks showing up that haven't historically. So congratulations to you and your team. And I think it was actually the hospice who said to our Ward A councillors and Ward C councillors that they would love to see something like that happen again next year. So the pressure is on. Any other community events? I'm seeing none. I think I can adjourn this meeting. Oh, I can't. Oh, shoot. This is why we have him here. He's listening to me. I did forget, because I had brought up the discussion on the Swift River funds. Thank you for that reminder, because this is very important. And maybe I could ask Direct CAO Pink If you could help us shape a path forward on how we can approach this funding.
Thank you. I think maybe just to back up on the discussion, and I stand to be corrected and staff can certainly confirm, but I think this isn't a reserve that's obligatory in the sense of there's no formal restrictions that I'm aware on it. Yes, there's been discussions in the past and I think there's been general direction. I think staff would have to investigate whether there's been an actual formal resolution passed directing what it should be utilized for. But I think committee council does have flexibility as to what you wish to use the funds for. In speaking with the treasurer and the economic development officer, I think we're all of the same opinion. Those funds have been sitting there for some time, which is great. It's collecting interest. But I think at some point, direction is needed as to what council's vision is to do with that. And hence staff raised it in the report. And we certainly, are interested in the feedback from committee and council as to what you envision. Whether some of the options I heard, whether that starts with engagement with the community for them to spur the ideas, whether it's some of the CIP initiatives that have been identified, or a separate project altogether. But staff is really looking for some direction as to how committee and council feel about how best to utilize those funds moving forward. And again, this could perhaps be just an initial exploratory discussion. Staff can certainly return with a report should we need further direction or investigation into any past resolutions, etc.
I think I do see Councillor Zavitz, your hand up. I do like the idea of having something come back with a little bit more information and allow us to have a good, robust, more formal discussion about this actual fund. But I just want to make sure, Councillor Zavitz, is that the direction you were looking for as well, or?
Well, through you, and of course, I don't think there's any debate. There shouldn't be any debate, but if there needs to be, in terms of the actual around this table, the actual agreement in principle to dedicate those funds to, Bala at that point in time at least. And I mean, I have documentation in my computer from the mayor and the CAO at that time committing those funds. I think Councillor Kelly, maybe Councillor Mazan back then. So it was very clear, very, very clear. And I think it's important that we consult the public. I think to Councillor Nishikawa's point earlier, though, I don't believe the funds were ever discussed in terms of let's give Don's Bakery some of this and let's give, those businesses in the closest of proximity in the community safety zone where they built a hydro plant, right? So the point is, I think it's going to be a very interesting process, and I think it must start with a staff report and come forward in a very fulsome manner.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Director Proshi's just drafting something for us to read. Thank you for this reminder. Okay, just, of course I can.
Oh, wait a minute. Short-term rentals. Mhm.
Okay, I have two resolutions left to read between us and lunch. Okay, so the first one, thank you very much, CAO Pink, for the reminder, is moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that staff be directed to investigate and report back to committee on the current status and potential next steps on the utilization of funds as a result of the lease of the township lands associated with construction of the hydroelectric facility in Bala. Okay, all those in favor? That carries, thank you. Be it resolved, moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that this meeting adjourn at 12:20 p.m. and that the next regular meeting of the General Finance Committee will be held on Wednesday, September 11th at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair electronically from the Council Chambers Municipal Office in Port Carling, Ontario. All those in favor? Thank you. And I believe Mayor Kelly has suggested we resume at 1:15 for lunch today. So that gives us close to a full hour for lunch. Okay. Thank you very